What's up guys, I'm Andy from 1A Auto. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the rear brakes on this 2010 Toyota RAV4. If you need these parts or other parts for your vehicle, click the link in the description and head over to 1aauto.com. I'm going to remove the wheel. I'm using a 21mm socket and an air gun. If you don't have an air gun, you can remove it on the ground with a breaker bar before you raise the vehicle up. The wheel wasn't too difficult to get off. If you do have trouble getting it off, you can just put a lug nut on there and hit the back of the tire with a hammer. Generally that gets them off. Now I just want to compress this caliper a little bit just to make it easier to pull off. Just take a straight blade screwdriver, get in here, just try to pry it out a little bit. That'll just make the pad slide off easier. Now I'm going to take these two bolts out. I'm going to use a 14mm socket and a ratchet. Break these free. And then if the slide starts spinning, you can use a wrench on that slide. Before I take that one out, break the top one free. All right, now I'll just take these bolts out. Slide those out. Now you can grab the caliper. And you want to use some type of a caliper hook. We actually sell these at 1aauto.com. And we'll just hook this onto the spring right here. That way it keeps the tension off the hose. You don't ever want to just let the caliper hang from the hose because it could damage the hose. Next, I'm just going to remove these pads. Just grab the pads and slide them out. Just like that, set them aside. Then I'm going to take a 17mm socket and a ratchet, loosen these two bolts up that hold this bracket on. They're pretty tight, so if you need to, use a breaker bar to break them free. And to make it easier, I'm just going to use an electric ratchet. All right, this rotor is stuck on there pretty good. There is these two little threaded holes. What you can do is find a bolt that's going to work with those threads, and then take a, well, depending on the bolt, I'm using a 12mm socket and an electric ratchet. Just going to tighten this down a little bit. Now I'm actually going to tap the rotor with a hammer. I just want to tap in these locations. Be careful not to hit the studs. That loosens up. Tighten that up a little bit more. And you could get two bolts, but I'm just going to use one. There we go. Nice and loose. You can slide it right off. Here's the old parts. Here's the new brake parts from 1aauto.com. As you can see, the height of the rotor is the same. It's machined the same way. It actually is slotted and drilled for better cooling. The pads themselves are made of the same material and shaped the same direction. Get yours at 1aauto.com and be ready to rock and roll. I'm just going to take a pocket screwdriver, take these clips off. You can take them off both sides. You just want to clean up this caliper bracket. Be careful if you have to reuse those. And then take a wire brush, just clean up this area right here. And then we'll do the same for the other side. All right, so this is more of a preference, but you can put a little grease on this area right here. And then when you take the clip, put the anti-rattle clip back on. And we're gonna take some more grease and just clean up on here. If you had any dirt on there, you wanna clean that off as well. But just grease that area up there, just like that. Do the same for the other side. What happens on these caliper brackets is they corrode underneath there, and the rust actually pushes up on these rattle clips, and that prevents the pads from sliding properly. Then also with the slide pins, I'm going to take these slide pins out, take some brake parts cleaner, clean these off, and a rag, just wipe them down. And then same in the hole, you can spray a little brake parts cleaner in there, clean those out the best you can, just like that. Dump some of that out. Take a little brake caliper grease, grease up the pin. Then we'll do the same with the other side. Slide it in, make sure that little grommet is sealed properly. I need to take this little cover off on the old rotor. This is actually the adjuster cover for the parking brakes. You can pull this off and then you can adjust the parking brakes, transfer it over to the new rotor. Just take a pocket screwdriver, get it back in position. It's good. Now we do have a new hub on this vehicle, so we wouldn't need to do this, but normally you would take a wire brush and just clean the hub surface, any of the rust right here and right here. Just try to get in there, clean it out the best you can. All right, first thing I want to do, put the rotor on backwards. So I'm going to spray the rotor. There is a protective coating on the rotor, so just wipe it off. That's just to prevent it from rusting. And slide it the other way. And then spray some more brake parts cleaner and wipe it off. Now we'll take the bracket, slide that back in position, right there. Take the caliper bolts, caliper bracket bolts, get those started. Now I'm just gonna take my 17mm socket and a ratchet, tighten these up. Now I'm going to use that same 17mm socket and a torque wrench. I'm going to tighten these bolts to 65 foot-pounds. Now take these brake pads. It doesn't really matter which way they go. Slide those in position there. And then same on the inside. That's good. Now we can grab the brake caliper, slide the hanger off of the caliper. Then I'm going to use a piston compressor, caliper piston compressor. There's obviously different types of caliper piston compressors. We actually sell this one at 1aauto.com. I like the way this one works. Just get this lined up in there. And then it ratchets. Ratchets one way to tighten it and another way to loosen it. Now you want to go nice and slow when you're doing this. As you're compressing this piston into the caliper, fluid's going through the lines, up to the master cylinder, and into the reservoir. So it's a good idea to check the reservoir after you're done and adjust accordingly. All right. Put it back on loosen this up. Take the caliper, slide it over the pads. Take these caliper bolts, slide those in there. One there, one there. Then I'm going to use a 14mm socket and a torque wrench. I'm going to torque these bolts to 20 foot-pounds. And if you have to, you can use a wrench to hold the the slide from spinning. If the slide spins, then just use a 14mm wrench. It's good. Same with the bottom one. All right, for the bottom one, I just need an extension because the hose was in the way. Just like that. Now I'm going to reinstall the tire. Take the lug nuts, install the lug nuts. Now I'm going to use a 21mm socket and a torque wrench. I'm torquing these lug nuts to 76 foot-pounds, and I'm going to do it in a star pattern. That way that the wheel gets tightened down evenly. I'll just go around again, just make sure. Good to go. Now we want to make sure we pump up the brake pedal, because there is going to be a little bit of an air gap between the brake pads and the rotor, and this is going to eliminate that air gap. Just pump it up. It's going to squish the piston into the brake pads, and that's good. Make sure it feels good. And last, under the hood, you want to make sure you check your brake fluid level. Make sure it's not too high. If it's above the max, you want to empty some out. Use some kind of fluid transfer pump. And then if it's too low, you want to add the appropriate brake fluid.
Thanks for watching. Visit 1aauto.com for quality auto parts shipped to your door, the place for DIY auto repair. And if you enjoyed this video, please click the subscribe button.